I'm Danny Otto. Welcome into another episode of That Recap Show. Now, before we get into the episode, just wanted to issue major spoiler alert. We are going to be going over everything that happened in Season 2, Episode 9 of the Bad Batch series. So if you haven't watched that episode yet, you may want to pause this video, head over to Disney Plus, check out that episode, and then come back and enjoy the breakdown. Now, with that out of the way, let's start the show.
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.
Joining with me to break down everything from Episode 9, Season 2 of The Bad Batch, it's Jon Jon Rico!
Hello.
Hello!
How we doing?
I feel like you need to do the Obi-Wan hello every single time.
Hello there.
There we go! Now it feels like a Star Wars recap.
There we go. Not every time, though. Not every time. It's got to be special.
We gotta make special.
Yeah.
All right, so Episode 9, You know, like after last week, I kind of just like, I know you told me the program schedule and I know it's released and I know I've even seen it like scrolling on Twitter and stuff looking for, support when we make these videos. But something in me was like, there might be 2 episodes this week. I don't know why, but just like, it feels like it just needs to be now. I don't know. Maybe I'm just spoiled at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think this was a really straightforward episode. I enjoyed it. I'm not saying straightforward in a bad way. I just think it was, the main focus of the episode is really kind of, emotions and dealing with feelings and stuff like that. What's actually taking place in the episode is kind of very simple. Like they're on another mission and then that's about it. But it's really the development and stuff like that kind of really makes this episode shine and stuff like that. And we're going to get more into that with takeaways and everything like that. But the biggest thing that I took away immediately from this episode, and it happens right at the beginning, and it just gave me a huge thought as I was kind of thinking about it as it happened in this episode. In other Star Wars TV shows and movies, I went back and I was like, that does happen a lot. And it's spaceships. Spaceships, obviously, and everything Star Wars related. But I always feel like when we see our main characters leaving their ship, it's not secure. In a lot of cases, in some cases, somebody stays behind and stuff like that. And I get that. But in a lot of cases, they don't. Either it's a crew of 1 or 2 people and both of them are going on to whatever they have to do for their journey, or it's, 1 person or everybody in the crew leaves. Like in this episode, everybody from the Bad Batch, went on the mission. And, even though there were lookouts, it's still, you weren't looking directly at the ship. You're not standing on the ship type of thing. And I just feel like, thinking about Andor and even before that, thinking about The Mandalorian and even the Star Wars trilogies, both new, old, and prequels. There's a lot of time where people just kind of leave ships. And I just feel like they're not as secure as the way we park cars. I get it. In a lot of cases, they're parking them off the grid, but it only takes 1 person to find them, and then whoosh, exactly what happened in this episode, the ship's gone, and you're stranded on an alien planet. I feel like the risk, there's too big of a risk there to not just constantly have a droid on the ship or humans and a droid on the ship constantly. I would be paranoid. If I was in the Star Wars galaxy, I would be paranoid constantly if I had a spaceship and I was landing on alien worlds, just doing something. Be like, okay, someone's staying here with a droid that doesn't sleep, and they're going to constantly be watching to make sure no one boards the ship and just takes off and leaves me. Maybe that's just me, but that's I want to have a whole big thought about about all the vehicles in all of the Star Wars media that we've seen, and just how people just carelessly just walk off of it. And the doors automatically shut by themselves, and they don't even look back to see if the doors actually finish closing. Anything can happen, man. We see main characters steal vehicles all the time, no matter where they are.
Yeah, main character.
Well, yeah, I get that. But we're all kind of main characters in our own story. If we're doing the story of Danny Otto, I'm going to, of course, be the main character. The book of Johnny Rico, you're going to be the main character in that. So you're going to be walking off of your ship and not looking behind you.
Right, right. Yeah. Well, here's the great thing about people. There's so many people in the galaxy, so many different planets. But here's the thing: not everybody grows up learning how to fly a ship, and that's when we always see these characters that we're following. They're pretty capable of flying ships. That's why they're stealing other people's ships, and other people are kind of using them for their own like personal purposes. Whether you have ships that are used for just like carrying cargo around, like your farmstead or whatever it is. But a lot of times, yeah, these people are parking off the grid, like you said, to stay out of sight, out of mind. So they're not particularly worried about like the local farmer or village people who are going to go and steal in their ships. They might get their ships scavenged. We've seen that a lot of
Yeah,
times.
that damn Jawas.
Yeah, the Jawas are particularly guilty of it all the time. So we know those people can't fly any ships. So I think that plays a big part into it. Obviously, like not every planet has like a spaceship parking lot, or everyone's got their own set of keys or like a DNA encoding to start your ship type deal. But yeah, I think in this case it doesn't work out in their favor because they are on this planet that they don't really know very well. It's like kind of a lot of little like little caves and like canyons and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's
So
like a mining planet. Yeah.
there's very little spot that they can kind of plant and or plant the ship and still be safe with it. So it ends up being in a spot where they can't really see. Wrecker's supposed to be lookout, and he's like, "Well, it's gone now." As soon as they land the ship, they're being scouted out by locals, so it's
Right.
already kind of like playing against their favor to begin with. But yeah, I don't think there's that's kind of the whole thing with Star Wars, right? It's the that Wild West feel, so like anything can happen at any single point with any piece of equipment or someone's life, anything like that.
Yeah. So anyway, I knew that really didn't have they had such a small part of this episode, but it's just it set me on a spiral of thoughts about spaceships across the entire Star Wars history that we've had in all the different mediums, both cartoon, real life, TV show, or movie, TV show, live action, stuff like that. But anyway, Rico, what were some of your instant reactions from episode 9?
Yeah. Okay. So when the episode started, we're kind of back into the swing of that old like adventure of the week feel. Like the crew, Sans Echo, are on this new planet. Um, it kind of gives off this nice little like west. This whole episode gave kind of gave me a little bit like western feels with the way the music is playing at the beginning. Actually, the music gave me a little bit of like the like a little bit of the feels of The Last of Us, the way that music is with the acoustic
Ooh.
guitar. So
Mhm.
there's some. I thought there was some. Maybe it's just because I've been watching a lot of that recently, and some of the music is very familiar to me. But I thought I really liked Kevin Kiner's score to open up the episode. Um, but as things unfold, we're kind of getting this great little personal journey between Tech and Omega, and then the episode ends like you said, like in this cliffhanger kind of a deal. So, and I yeah, rather than just kind of wrapping itself in a nice little bow and just one little adventure of the week, we're going to see it actually play into next week, which I think has made me enjoy it a little bit more, knowing that I felt like because when it ended, it kind of just end. I was like, okay, wow, there's still so much to kind of like take in still with the story. I think, but there's still enough to build off of for next week, which I think is really cool. Um, but yeah, I think this was a really cool little like, them extracting the minerals from like the rocks and those are kind of like those explosive vials. You know what it reminds me of? Those the batteries in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, it was a Drax called their Harbulary batteries or something like that. It's one of those things. But that's kind of like, the glowing substance that can explode kind of a deal that we see that kind of frequented in a lot of different little like, sci-fi adventure type deals. But yeah, I feel like this was kind of a good little setup for what's possibly going to come next week.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, that's what I'm going to talk about in my prediction is kind of the way that this episode kind of ended and what I feel like there's stuff that they kept from us in this episode that they could have immediately revealed had they wanted to just contain this to one episode. So I'll talk more about that in my predictions for like moving forward. But Rico, you want to get to some big takeaways?
Mhm.
Awesome. All right, why don't you kick us off with big takeaways?
So I was talking about the character development between Tech and Omega. I think that was kind of a really cool little personal story point to kind of tackle through this episode. As the crew's going on through their mission, Omega's still pretty upset with Echo leaving throughout the episode,
Yeah.
and Tech just kind of being the straightforward analysis type. He's just kind of like they're kind of clashing a little bit on how they're kind of tackling him leaving, and Omega. The whole thing is that like Echo doesn't have really a lot of emotion, or Tech doesn't have a lot of emotion. And I always want to say Techo sometimes because they're so like Tech and Echo, but Tech doesn't really show a lot of emotion because he just sees everything for what it is. Like he's at face value, and Omega is someone who wears like her heart on her sleeve, so she's very emotional, and she doesn't let anyone uh like stop her from showing it essentially. And so she kind of goes off on her own. It upsets her to a point where she doesn't even want to be near everyone. And she goes off and does her own thing. And Tech's like, whatever, keep doing our thing. And then Hunter and Wrecker tell her, like, dude, what are you doing? Go check on the kid.
Yeah.
Like go fix like the mess you made. And so this kind of leads to them, doing the fall down into the river rafting and like the river rafting, but the rafts basically. But it leads to them kind of being stuck in this beautiful looking cavern. The rocks glowing up the water. I always like that kind of thing when the minerals are creating the light in the cavern and creates this nice little visual effect. But they have this kind of conversation by the water about how they're both kind of processing the Echo leaving differently. And I very much relate with Tech in certain ways, because like just because he processes things his own way doesn't mean that he doesn't feel the same way that Omega does. And sometimes, like if you, for someone like her, it takes a lot to recognize how one people channel things in their own way, like the way they process moments like someone leaving, either whether it's grief or just plain old just painful emotions. Everyone has their own way of tackling. Even Wrecker and Hunter probably have their own ways of tackling the same issue as well. And for a lot of them, it's just keep the mission going. Like Tech said, like we were the crew before Echo was with us, and we're the same crew after he leaves us as well. So it's like nothing changes. That's kind of like the way he's programmed. But I like that kind of Omega brings up that side of him that he kind of sees where, again, they're a family. He has to start looking at them like they're a family, and there is a connection that he has to draw there. Like, not, he can't just look at everything with just statistics and analysis, right?
Right.
So I think that was kind of the beautiful little personal growth between those two characters that really this episode did a good job of displaying.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I absolutely agree with you. Like, as far as takeaways, I think that's the biggest theme of this episode is just, being able to kind of see how people process emotions differently. And I mean, we've said it before on the pod racing episode,
Mhm.
where Tech really is very robotic about the way he thinks things through with statistics and figures and stuff like that.
Like a droid.
Right. So we're seeing him not really show emotion on the outside type of thing. And we're seeing the contrast of that with Omega, who, just like you said, heart on her sleeve, just full force showing all of her emotion, cards all out on the table type of thing.
Mhm.
And it's funny that you mentioned the music being similar to Last of Us, because when you were just talking about your big takeaway, it actually made me think of kind of the development between Joel and Ellie in Last of Us, to where, Joel has a very hardened shell and doesn't really, let Ellie in at all. But we're seeing that kind of his shell is slowly starting to come down. And on the contrast, we're seeing Ellie, who was very naive, kind of getting into the beginning when we first meet her, has now witnessed some really cold events, some really
Right.
like, I swear we're not recapping another Last of Us video, but I'm just comparing this. But like, we see how they're kind of, both of their emotions are the way that they are, and they're contrasting each other. And then I think as they grow and shape almost each other, we're going to see kind of both of them kind of change a little bit emotionally. And I
Right.
think in the same way, we're seeing that between Omega and Tech, where we're like that conversation, I think, was very important in, shedding light on how, just because Omega doesn't see Tech, missing someone or
Right.
processing missing someone doesn't mean he's not, type of thing. And I think that
Right.
was an important lesson for Omega to learn, so that she doesn't just assume that everyone's going to react to things the same way she's going to. And the fact that
Yeah.
they're not means that they're not actually, they don't care, type of thing. And I think it really does kind of show that their relationship is growing, just like hers and Hunter's and hers and Echo's did, and hers and everyone in the Bad Batch. I mean, you could easily say that, but I just think this was that key moment
That was that
for
moment for them.
right.
Right.
And I thought it was very important, and it was really cool to see. And yeah, I mean, I know I've said this in past recap videos just for the Bad Batch. It really does give a really cool appreciation, because this is a cartoon, but these are real, emotions, and these are real, like, scenarios, type of thing. Like, just like we said, this live action version of this Last of Us episode, like, type of thing, where we had, the compare and contrast of a growing relationship, type of thing. And so I think it really just like makes a cartoon series more lifelike by
Oh
by
yeah.
showing these real situations, where you actually see a relationship grow, and you really see a character's growth in such, especially such a short episode. This was really the main focus, and it really did get that point across. That's what I thought, at least.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, like it's not just Tech growing in this either. It's also Omega, because she's again, Tech kind of brings up like he's already gone through this with Crosshair, and she kind of
Right.
it kind of camera shifts to her, and she kind of realized like, okay, yeah, like he's already been dealing with this before even Echo left. Like he's been probably dealing with this longer than I have already. Um, and so that kind of allows her to she's experiencing real life lessons now that she's now no longer on Camino and to Focus City. So like again, she's like kind of like Ellie, like you said, she's kind of getting that like he's the dose of the real world,
Right.
in sometimes real harsh doses, but also in more like kind of meaningful ways too. Like she's learning things even about the people that she considers brothers.
Right. Right. And I, there's we could kind of talk more and more about this all we wanted to, but like that I think is a really cool way to both give us an Adventure of the Week episode, but also give us this character growth episode. I think
Mhm.
this was a really cool, important way to do that, and a good way to do that, I guess. You want to get to some predictions?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. I'm going to kick us off with predictions. I kind of hinted at it at the beginning before I went into my entire tirade about spaceship parking and the risk of theft for spaceship. But what I was saying was that it really did feel like we were going to get a double episode because of the way this episode ended. And so that, knowing that we didn't get that, and we don't have that resolve, and we didn't get that instant second episode, makes me wonder if stuff that they left out from this episode are really big reveals for moving forward, either the next episode or the episode after that. Like, we don't know. Do we know? Do we even know what planet they were actually on?
I think they might have said it, but I can't remember the name of it.
Okay. But like, we don't know when they're going to get picked up, because Sid said a few days. We don't know who
Yeah, she
stole
was
their
no help.
ship. Yeah. We don't know exactly who the identity of who stole their ship was. Like, there's so many like questions that we didn't get answered, and no hints to what's going to happen next, type of thing. It leads me to believe that something big is going to be revealed in the next episode, and that's why they didn't just give us an instant next episode, or quickly resolve it and wrap it up like an Adventure of the Week episode would normally go, type of thing.
Right.
And so that's where I'm at now. It's not really much of a prediction. It's just, I think there's going to be some kind of bigger reveal in the resolve of this. And that's why, we kind of paused the way we paused, which, just like you said, was really just ended. Like, it didn't even wrap up that act, I guess, of the entire encompassing full adventure,
Right.
basically. It just fade to black all of a sudden. So I'm really thinking something big's about to happen, or at least something big's about to be revealed, and I'm excited for next week. But Rico, what were some of your predictions for this, I guess, moving forward?
Yeah. It's funny. I was thinking about more how it ended. And in a way, it did kind of wrap up because the story was really them being trapped in the cavern and finding their way out using the minerals. And then we find them on the way out. But you kind of get the sense that we're going to get them trying to get their ship right away. And then that's the part where it really cuts off. And you're just like, oh, it leaves you wanting more. I think it's really what it is. Like,
Right.
it's a good cliffhanger because it leaves you wanting more. But I right here in my prediction notes, I just put there's a storm of brewing. And because really one of the final shots is that big kind of like, I don't know if it's like a sandstorm or something. There's a storm coming towards that little area that's kind of sweeping over the canyons as they were already kind of like landing on the planet. It was already kind of off in the distance, but it's getting closer and closer as they escape. It's on its way. So obviously I feel like that's gonna play into the next episode. Obviously they don't have their ship, so that they're gonna be pretty screwed. I have to imagine there's gotta be a city with locals because someone took their ship, and I have to imagine the person is pretty capable because they were able to fly a ship in this area that doesn't seem like there's a big spaceport area to begin with. So it would be cool if that ends up being like a cool reveal, like I was kind of hoping it would be like Hondo or something like that, like the pirates, like one of the because it kind of looked like him from a distance, and then like when you got more close of it, it wasn't Hondo at all. But if we keep talking about the pod racing episode from a few weeks back, and there was a boss, the crime boss in that episode, Maligi, I think his name was,
Maligi,
big fella, and he was telling I mean, he was telling either Tech or one of them or even Omega about how Sid is someone that you shouldn't really rely on, and we got really a dose of that in this episode when they get in reach of her, and she's all like, "Yeah, whatever, I'll be there in like a few days." Like, sorry, I can't help you. I got other things to do. Like, and then they bring up all the stuff they've done for her, and then that's when she's like, "Oh, give me a few days." Like, okay, like all the stuff they've done for you, you give them a few days if you won't even like jump on it right away. So like you're already kind of starting to see how that relationship is going to start to split and then
Yeah.
break. So I'm sure that's going to happen relatively quick and before the end of the season, I would imagine probably maybe before to wrap up the end of this episode or the next episode. Like this could be like, why didn't you help us sooner? Like, and it's going to really start this falling out between them. But yeah, we're in this second half of the season, and I don't think there's going to be a lot of room for these kind of bottle episodes, which is why I like this being a two-parter. It's going to giving us a more fleshed out arc in this world, and whatever the story is like between these two adventures. Like we're staying on this same adventure, like so
Right.
it's the adventure of 2 weeks, which is pretty great. But yeah, I'm looking forward to see. I want more Crosshair. I really want more Crosshair.
Yeah.
Where the hell is he? I want an update on Crosshair. I really don't like that we've only seen him one episode this season. So I was like, yeah, can I please get some more Crosshair, please?
Please, Disney Plus.
Yeah, please.
Why no Crosshair?
One of my favorite performances in the whole show.
Why no Crosshair? But anyway, that's what we think. Let us know in the comments below. What did you think of episode 9? And how do you think the Bad Batch crew is going to get off the planet and get their ship back? And as always, don't forget, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to hear about all of our latest audio and video podcast releases. Bye, everybody!
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.